Hey everyone, in this video we're going to discuss why I use a sloper when I'm sewing my patterns. So first I wanted to discuss what a sloper is. And a sloper is basically a building block that fits to your body that you can use to create new patterns or alter patterns with. When I first started learning to sew, I had no idea what a sloper was. And so if you look back at my older videos, you can see I wasn't using a sloper to alter my patterns. And it created a lot of work. So one pattern that I didn't use a sloper for was my culotte pants. And I have a very cylindrical torso. So that means the crotch area never fits for any pants patterns. So I spent a lot of time altering the pants, and now I can't really use those alterations and apply it to new patterns. And I can't use those alterations because I don't know where the darts are in the original pattern. Basically, each pattern maker uses like a different block to create their patterns from. And so since I don't know what the block is, I could use my alterations, but I don't think it would be the best. Whereas if you're using a sloper, you sort of know where all the darts are. And I can show you on, let's see, I have two. This is my woven sloper. So this has more darts in it. And so you can see I have a lot of darts. I have these center ones, I have a waist, I have one in the chest area, armpit, the shoulder on the front and the back. And so I know where those are, and I know how much space is being allotted to each dart, which is important. And we can discuss that a little more later. But there is another pattern I also did not use a sloper for, and that was a t-shirt I made. And again, because I have a cylindrical torso, I always have fit problems in the arm side. And again, I spent a lot of time altering that pattern, and I can't really use those alterations and apply it to another pattern from a different pattern creator. So that's when I discovered what a sloper is, and I created this woven sloper. And I actually first created a moulage, which is different from a sloper. This is actually a form-fitting pattern. Like, there's no ease in it, there's nothing. And this is gonna fit skin tight to your body. You're not going to be able to wear it. And I took a Craftsy class on how to make this. So you started with the moulage and made sure the moulage fit. And then from the moulage, you went and created the sloper. And I will say the class was very frustrating. It took many hours for me to get here. However, once I got to the sloper, it basically fit perfectly. Like I haven't needed to adjust these at all. I've used this woven sloper to alter two patterns. One is a cardigan I made last year. And so that's actually made with knit fabric. And so what I could do is simply create a knit sloper out of my woven sloper. And again, once I made the sloper, it was super easy to lay this onto the pattern, especially because it was a knit. So because it's a knit, there are less darts here, none in the back. So I could just put that on top of the pattern and make the alterations I needed without really questioning things. And then the second thing I made was my harmony dress. And that is woven, but there is a lot of positive ease. So I simply took my sloper, and I believe I removed the darts from it. So I just pinned these together. And again, I just added ease directly from the sloper onto the pattern. And so there are a few things to consider when making a sloper, right? So remember at the beginning I said you don't really know what darts the pattern maker is using when they're creating their blocks. That does still apply with the sloper. Like when you're using the sloper to alter, you don't really know if they've already included a dart here or a dart here. So you do have to do some matching and wiggling around. For example, for me, it's best if I line my sloper up in the arm side and then see how it fits with the pattern I'm altering. That's what I've discovered. I've also learned you can match them up on the center or on the side seams. So really there is a little bit of playing room, and I'm not an expert in this at all. I'm still learning. So if anybody has any other tips or tricks for lining up your sloper with a pattern to alter, please leave any advice in the comments below, and that would be greatly appreciated. So now that I have the bodice sloper, I'm going to be making a pant sloper, and I'm going to be following the sloper from Pattern Making for Fashion Design. It's a book that is generally used for teaching, so it's quite expensive. I actually rented mine from the library, and that worked out perfectly. So we're gonna see how that sloper pattern works out for making a pair of pants for me. The first steps in creating a trouser sloper is getting your measurements and doing the necessary math that the sloper will lay out for you. I like to do this before drawing the sloper. It's also important to keep track of your numbers and label your sloper properly. The first part of the sloper includes marking your waist, hip, knee, and ankle heights to create a bunch of rectangles. This sloper then called for creating 2 darts on the front and back waist, followed by creating the crotch extension. The last step is to create a more tapered shape along the side seam. When there's an area where you create a new line, make sure to cross out the old ones so you don't get confused. Also, label your sloper with any useful information such as no ease and no seam allowances. Once the front and back pieces are drawn, make sure to true the side seams by walking one of the front pattern pieces along the other piece. This will ensure one side isn't longer than the other. I needed to add 1/8 of an inch to one of the pieces at the bottom. I then matched up the crotch area to make sure the transition between the 2 halves was smooth. This is what the trouser sloper looks like, and from this I created a slack sloper, which is a little more fitted. Next, I'll make a muslin of the sloper. It's important to test out your sloper because there are still assumptions being made about your body during the sloper creation process. I trace out all my pieces and then sew over them with a basting stitch. This is beneficial for 2 reasons. 1, I can cut out a large seam allowance in an area I think might need more altering. And 2, if I need to unpick a seam, I can see where the original line was and measure from that to get my new line. The sloper needed a lot of modifications to the point where I needed to add extra fabric in the crotch area to make it work. I also needed to take in the side seams quite a bit. Because there were so many modifications, I made a second muslin, which needed more taken in from the side seams and minor crotch adjustments. Because the sloper needed so many modifications, I would only recommend using this pattern If you're more experienced with alterations and understand what needs to be taken in or out to make a garment fit. I hope you enjoyed this video and I've convinced you to give making a sloper a try. I'm going to provide all the links in the description for the resources I've used over the past year and a half to learn how to make a sloper, and hopefully that can help you on your sloper making journey.